I'd like to talk about lost friends after your loss. But before we talk about that, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're here for the first time, you're so very welcome now. I myself have experienced loss. I have lost my mother. That was probably the first time I experienced loss at all, or experienced someone passing away, was when I lost my mother very sadly. I was about 22 years of age. Then quite some years later, I lost my father. And then quite a lot recently, 4 years ago, I lost my son, sadly. He was 22 years of age. And I've experienced, not so much after losing my parents, but losing my son. After losing my son, I experienced some of my friends, my sort of so-called friends, drifted away. And you may think, well, they weren't a true friend. Well, yeah, possibly not. They weren't possibly a true friend or someone that was very close to me, or I was very close to them. But if you think about why, we might make some sense of it. And sometimes with one friend, I found that she came to pay her respects as soon as I lost my son, but then drifted away quite quickly. There was no messages, there was no phone calls, and I haven't seen her since. So, and when she did come to pay her respects, it was very much not really being able to make eye contact with me, not really knowing what to say. And she did say, "I don't know what to say to you, Zala." And she just sat with me for a while, and then she left. And I've never seen her since, as I say. So what happens is sometimes people just don't know what to say. People feel very uncomfortable around this topic of loss, of losing a loved one, especially losing a child, because it's so against the natural order of things, isn't it? And that's why, we refer to Veloma. Veloma means against the natural order of things. So yeah, a Veloma. And people, it can be quite uncomfortable for people to get their head around it, first of all. And the other thing is then what to say, how to behave around somebody who has, around a parent who has lost a child. Because no one really can know exactly how that feels unless, they have experienced it. Because I do, if I do sometimes talk about it, someone might respond with, "Oh, yes, I know. I know what it feels to, experience loss because I lost a parent." But I've lost my parents too. And I know that losing my parent was no way relatable to losing my son, actually. And that might be quite difficult for someone to hear that, but it's true. Losing a parent is very, very painful. And, I remember especially losing my mother, at the age of 22, completely cut me up completely, is the only way I can sort of say. I don't know how else I could express it, but it completely, it was devastating, absolutely devastating. But at the same time, she was ill, although she was still quite young. She was 50-ish, I think she was 50, 51 when she passed away. That's in this day and age very young. And she got ill, and because she was ill, and she was so ill, and she was given a certain amount of time by the doctors to live, and that she would probably only, although she lived a lot longer than what they predicted, we still were aware of that. Now, even being aware of that, when it actually happens, it still can completely derail you. It's not that because you knew that it was inevitable, so anticipatory grief can set in to some extent, but you don't actually know what it feels like until it actually happens. So it can actually, as I say, completely derail you. But the thing is that when I experienced the loss of my son, that was, to an extent where I just, there's no comparison at all, losing your child to any other loss. Now, so that particular friend, haven't seen her after that. I haven't approached her either. I haven't said, look, if you feel uncomfortable about, talking about what I've experienced, we could get together still and not talk about. But then, the thing is that I'm sort of thinking, well, why am I doing that? It's not that I need to, if let's say we were sat together for an hour, that I'd be talking about my son for an hour. I might not even mention my son for an hour. We might talk about all sorts of other things that we're going, catching up on each other's lives, about each other's lives. I might not even mention my son. So it's not something that, I feel that I have to mention or I have to bring into it every single conversation. It's not like that at all. So chances are, if we were to meet up, it would be talking about all sorts of other things that, we have been, how we're living our lives and what's happening, and, I might not even touch on the topic, about loss or grief or, anything that I'm experiencing, especially when I know that she's not comfortable with that. I probably wouldn't bring it up. I wouldn't deliberately bring it up anyway. So, but then at the same time, I'm thinking, why am I trying to skim around that? Why am I trying to accommodate, someone else because they have a problem with it, perhaps, or feel uncomfortable about it, feel uncomfortable about loss, perhaps, or it's just too triggering for them for whatever reason. I don't know, but I don't think I'm ever going to go there and ask that question, on the basis that I think, if it was a true friendship, because I believe that it was, it just isn't a true friendship for this new version of me. So then why am I thinking that, I'll try and accommodate somebody else by not mentioning, what I've experienced and who I am now, because it is who I am now. And then there's been relationships where, they've withstood this loss. So they have accepted the new version of me. They've not expected me to be, because I'm actually quite naturally quite a sociable, humorous, I love having a laugh, and, probably the life and soul of a party, I would have thought, very much, that kind of sociable person, which I might not be quite at that level. But that is the new version of me, and that's fact. That is how it is. I know that the level of happiness is at a new level now. It's not where it was. Yeah. But that doesn't mean to say there's no happiness, that there's no joy, that there's no gratitude, that there's no contentment, there's no fulfillment. There's all those things, but they're on a different level to what they were before I had my loss. And that's what I've learned to, accept and believe and know is the truth. And my true friends know that about me too. So I haven't completely lost my old personality. It's just a slightly different version of the person I was before. Yeah. But in some ways, there's more in depth. There's more, I'm more compassionate. I'm more definitely shown resiliency in so many ways, not just bouncing back, but learning, evolving, growing. Again, that then means, being the best version of me that's possible, for me to be. So I think definitely that. So I think losing a friend isn't the be all and end all. I think what we need to look at is finding new friends, people that you can relate to. So don't so much mourn the loss of friendship after your loss. I feel that you need to move forward and think about finding new friends that, do get you, do take you as you are, who you are now, and I think that's what's important. Keep hold of the friends that, the friendships that have withheld, those your experiences. Do that, absolutely do that, because they're special people. But at the same time, do think about, finding new friends, and that's reaching out to, support groups or, charities. There's bereavement sessions like this. My YouTube channel is called, Ghazala's, Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe, but there's lots of others I've come across, bereavement cafe sessions where you can go along, might be at a community centre or a library perhaps, or at an actual cafe where they've, hired out space and time for people to just come along and talk about their loss. And, so then you feel a part of something. And I think feeling a part of something bigger is usually helps, and it definitely helped me. So the charity that I volunteer for as a bereavement counsellor made me a member of a much larger group of wonderful, wonderful women who support other women who have experienced loss, and that's what we do. And we've gone on to now, it's expanding slowly. I think, adding, support for men too, men and boys, and I think that's so important. So, but being a member of something, so I think brilliant, is just gives me a sense of belonging and a sense of that I've got this, support network around me, because as soon as someone notices that I might be looking a bit low or down, they're there, video call, they'd even come round if, a few of the ladies who I'm sort of quite friendly with, they'd be there. I know that. So we've got each other's back, and it's something so lovely about that. So yeah, finding new friends, absolutely I have. So I don't have any grief, for those lost friends, because it's okay. I've made peace with that. For whatever reason they couldn't carry on the relationship, that's okay. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to question it. But if one of those friends was to come back to me and say, I couldn't handle it, I'm so sorry, I would absolutely, take them back and tell them how much I appreciate the fact that they've, that would have taken a lot of courage to do that, to say, I couldn't handle it and I'm sorry I've not, seen you for all these, few years that have gone by, 4 years, over 4 years. So, I wouldn't hold it as a grudge against anybody, absolutely, because I don't truly know what's going on in other people's lives. And if she hadn't shared something with me, then I'm not going to know. So I'm not going to hold it against her in any way. Who am I to judge anybody else? Or, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. So I'm at peace with that. But what the message I really want to put forward in this video is, if you have lost friends as a result of your loss, please don't dwell on that too much, because if it was a deep, meaningful relationship, it probably would have withstood the loss, but then that person may come back, and that's okay. But do look forward and do look at making new connections and new relationships with people that, you could relate to, and that you can, you might have similar experiences, because that makes you feel and gives you a sense of, allowing you to show up and be your, close to your authentic self and show up as yourself, and also gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of being understood and your feelings validated, and all that helps in the process of grieving. And you know, a lot of us know who are grieving that it's not something that we are going to get over. You know, grief usually does not have an expiry date, and so, you know, it's something that we have to live with for the rest of our lives, in which case, you know, it's important to have, you know, your people, your tribe with you, that, you know, that get you, that understand you, so that it makes the journey, the road of bereavement, if you like, as smooth as possible, you know, and cushions those turbulent times a little bit, I would say. Definitely for me, it's been that. You know, I've shown up at sessions with the charity where we have debriefing, and someone's come up to me and asked me, you know, how are you? Because, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not okay. And, you know, that's it. And, you know, they're all there to support. And, you know, that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing. So finding your people, finding your tribe, absolutely important. I've, you know, made videos about that before, about that topic and the importance of that topic. But please don't grieve the loss of friends so much that didn't withstand your loss. Just move forward and try and find new friends, because I think that's the natural evolvement, you know, evolving through life, you know, through our experiences as we grow and we change, evolve, and, you know, and yeah, so it's just a natural process. Okay, so I hope you found the content of this video helpful. Please do share, please do like, please do comment, please do subscribe, and thank you to all of those who have subscribed. We haven't got that many, but I am grateful for the people who have subscribed. Thank you so much. It means so much to me. Let's hope we get more people subscribing, and we build this platform and this community where we all, you know, can help each other and have each other's back and have conversations. Thank you for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, look after your hearts and souls. Thank you.